Today's guest on Adversity to Strength is Captain JJ Yank Cummins, a decorated Navy veteran and die-hard New England sports fan who grew up in Sharon, Massachusetts. After graduating from Bates College in 1990, he enlisted in the Navy Reserves and went on to build a remarkable career as a fighter pilot, squadron commander, aircraft carrier captain. Over the course of more than 3 decades of service, JJ flew both the legendary F-14 and the F-18F Super Hornet, served as an instructor as the Navy Fighter Weapons School, better known as Top Gun, even contributed as the first technical advisor to Top Gun Maverick. He commanded the USS Anchorage and later the USS Gerald R. Ford, the Navy's newest and most advanced aircraft carrier, before finishing his career as Chief of Staff for US Second Fleet. With 3,900 flight hours, 740 carrier landings, 137 combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan, JJ's journey is not only one of military excellence, but also of resilience, leadership, and navigating the intense adversity that comes with life at the highest levels of naval aviation. His story is a powerful reminder of what it means to lead under pressure, adapt in the face of challenge, and find strength in service. JJ, an absolute honor to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for taking the time out and coming on.
Lee, it's my pleasure, and thank you. And it's great to be here. And yeah, I wish you could have read that intro to a couple of my high school teachers, because they would not believe that those things were being said about me. So maybe we can get that to them at some point.
Take us back to the start of your journey with everything. Where did it all begin for yourself there, JJ?
Yeah, talking about the Navy in particular, grew up in suburban Boston, which means I have the correct accent. I properly pronounce my R's. I'm wicked smart, and I'm a really good driver. As mentioned, a diehard Red Sox fan.
Sound like Ted.
Yeah, what's that? Oh,
You
like
sound like
Ted.
Ted.
Well, a little less crass, but I love that movie, and I cannot stop laughing when I watch the accents in that movie. There's very legitimate accents in that movie, so those are authentic. But going through public school in Sharon High School, just south of Boston. College, my freshman year of college at Bates College, a small school in Maine. I looked around my friends who were graduating, going into the cubicle farms of American corporate society, and I did not want to do that. I didn't want to go sit at a desk for 30 years or slug it out, with maybe striving for the corner office with a window. So I started to look around my freshman year, and I came across this naval aviation thing. I had two uncles that flew for the Navy, and when they started talking about flying aircraft off of a ship, I'm like, well, what? So a little bit of research, and then I'm like, I want to do that. And I always tell folks, I did all this before I saw the movie Top Gun. So that's when Top Gun came out that year, 86. So
Yeah, 86.
before I saw that, I said, I want to go down this path and fly for the Navy. How do I get there? Recruiter says you need to enlist in the reserves. So that's why I took a semester off from college, went to boot camp, became a corpsman or a medic in the Navy. And all through college, I was in the reserves. So when I graduated, I applied now as a prior enlisted corpsman, applying to go become an officer and fly. And I got in. I think that was very helpful. So I had a plan. 8 years from the thought of flying the Tomcat, I got my first flight 8 years later. Yeah. And my friends to this day are like, you've been talking about that your entire time in college, and you made it happen. So yeah, right time, right place, a lot of hard work and luck, and be able to make it happen. So yeah.
Just how difficult, I imagine it must be extremely, how difficult is it to qualify to fly a plane for the Navy like in Top Gun?
Yeah, it's you go through flight. Obviously, you gotta have good eyes, healthy, because they're investing millions of dollars in. So you gotta make sure that they're going to get a return on that. So that's step one. And then going through flight school, it's just I always tell folks, if you have three things, I always tell them, an aggressive spirit, hand-eye coordination, and the ability to learn from your mistakes, you can fly for the Navy. And you do those three things, you can make it. So, and obviously a lot of hard work, studying, and just trying to be the best. That was my goal, and worked hard, and the hard work paid off. And I failed to mention too, true goal of all this was to do a job that was rewarding, challenging, and dangerous. And I got all three. So I got all three of those. So without plenty of that, we can talk about that downstream. But that was a goal: not go to cubicle, do something rewarding, dangerous, challenging, and ultimately became fun. But so back to your original question, yeah, a lot of work, time, 2 years of, flight school and training and flying trainer aircraft. Then you get to the Tomcat, and then you're a student in the Tomcat, learning how to do dogfighting, drop bombs, land aboard the ship. So it's about a 2-year process to get to the point where they let you go out to the fleet and go on deployment and fly off of an aircraft carrier to go fly over Iraq or fly over Afghanistan. So a very long process.
What's it like flying over like an actual war zone?
Yeah, it's a
What's that
great.
like?
The first time I did it was over Iraq for Operation Southern Watch in 1995. So, the war had come down. They had a no-fly zone, and we're flying from the Persian Gulf in Tomcats, holding below the 32nd parallel, I believe. Any Iraqi fighters that came across would get shot down. So we hung out there, waiting, hoping that someone would flow south so we could shoot them down. Never happened. That was kind of
No.
anticlimactic because it was pretty settled, steady area. Fast forward to 2001, October 2001, a month after the attacks, the World Trade
Yeah.
Center, being over the beach of Afghanistan for my first flight over the beach in a truly hostile environment with folks on the ground who really wanted to kill me, us, was the eye opener. And I remember that, it's about a 2-hour transit to get up to central Afghanistan, air to air refuel on the way, of course. And then we did our first attacks in Kandahar, hitting some artillery positions in Kandahar, dropped my first bomb, laser guided weapon, come around for reattack. And I watched my wingman prepare for his attack. And I see out of the corner of my eye, I'm wearing night vision devices, these flashes. And I look behind him and I see these red balloons behind my wingman. And I go, that's kind of funny. What are those balloons doing up here at 25,000 feet? Well, those weren't
Yeah.
balloons. It was anti-aircraft artillery. They're shooting at us.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, my jaw dropped. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't like a training flight. There are folks who are trying to kill us right now. And that was
Yeah.
the wake-up call, to your comment earlier. What's it like? That like, this is okay. This is real. Uh, we got to be key. I just really was a wake-up call because up to the point, it was pretty low key until
Yeah.
it's shooting at you.
Did what happened? Did you like get like a rush of adrenaline? Did all your training kick in there? Or did you totally change?
Actually, I failed. I should have
Yeah.
called for him to maneuver. I should have said, Sharman, break left. But I'd said
Yeah.
nothing. I was so stunned, and they call it the drool cup, where you're just like,
Right.
that I said nothing. And it turns out it kind of buffeted his aircraft. He lost a generator, just missed him. So I want to tell you, I performed perfectly in my first true combat, but actually not the case. I was well trained, had 10 years experience. I failed at the moment of truth. And I look
Yeah.
back, and he still gives me a hard time about that today. He lives a few blocks south of me, but how'd it go? I failed. And I look back, I'm like, even though I was well trained, I choked because I was like stunned this was happening. So it didn't happen again. It was the wake up call, which served me the remaining 4 or 5 months we were over there. But it was something else to kind of realize that if I get shot down, two things: my wife's gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
Second, it's gonna be really unpleasant for me on deck in
Oh, yeah,
Afghanistan
yeah.
if you survive. Yeah. So, but that was the first flight of Afghanistan. And one last comment. I know it's a
Yeah.
long answer to a
Yeah,
short
go for it.
question. Come back and landing 5 hours later, sun's rising on the Theodore Roosevelt, land at 6 a.m., pull up to park our jet. I look up and see the flag flying from the yardarm of the USS Theodore Roosevelt. It's the same flag that was flying over the World Trade Center site about 3 weeks early, flown it out to our ship.
Yeah.
I looked up and I for a moment, exhausted, tired, one rush complete. I started to choke up because I'm thinking about all
Yeah,
those
yeah,
folks that
yeah, yeah.
perished on the September 11th. I'm like, I knew right then and there, I knew why I was in the Navy. I
Right.
came in, like I said earlier, for me, I wanted a challenge. I wanted danger. It was right then and there I realized, you know what? This isn't about me. It's about us, our nation, that flag, and that
Yeah.
refocused my next
I was going to
15
say,
years about
what
us.
what was it like going out on your next flight after you've come back in? You looked at the flag and you've gone back out. How did you feel?
Wait, I walked in the ready room. I'm like, when am I going again? I want to go tomorrow. Like, well, no, you just flew 7 hours. You need to take a day off to recover. I'm like, I don't care. I want to go
Yeah,
back. So how did I
I can
feel?
imagine.
I couldn't wait to get back because two friends of mine died on September 11th. They hit the World Trade Center, the second plane to hit. Former
Yeah.
squadron mate and a former dorm mate from Bates College were on that plane together, as it turns out. Yeah. So I put my first couple of bombs, had their names on them in memoriam of their lives. But when I landed, went back into my ready room on the ship and said, when can I go back? That was awesome. 9 years of training. I want to go back. You go like every 3 days, you fly over Afghanistan. So I couldn't go every day, unfortunately, but I wanted to because I wanted to go back and keep fighting the good fight and sticking it to the Taliban.
So when you're saying you did it for yourself, your career, that kind of thing. How much were those guys on your mind when you're going out to Afghanistan? You're on that aircraft carrier. Were you thinking about them a
It's
lot?
interesting in that we talk about naval aviation, and this is probably a thing for your job, compartmentalizing, where
Yeah.
when you take off the ship, you can't be thinking about things that can distract you, your family, your kids. For that 7 hours, you are just
focus on the
dialed
job.
into this. So now I would think I would actually carried a bunch of weight cards with me on my flight suit of their names of folks that were killed, and they would send weight cards out to me from the funerals, and I would fold them up and put them in my flight suit. This is a reminder. And I wouldn't think about it. So I came back. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I had these in here. So you kind of get this really good at laser focus and not thinking about things that could distract you and possibly hurt you or not let you complete the mission. So compartmentalizing. So I wasn't thinking about it all in the flight beforehand with the bomb, write the name on there. When I came back, you'd like, oh yeah, you kind of bring yourself back into the moment. Like, okay, missions, we shut down, the jets chained down, we're safe. Then you can have a time to reflect and think about
Yeah.
those people that perished on September
Yeah.
11th.
Yeah. Yeah, that must be emotional, especially for you guys. Obviously, back in the day, I remember everyone. It's like with Kennedy, everyone knows where they were, what they were
Yep.
doing.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't even know what Twin Towers were at the time. I might have heard of them, but I didn't know. And when somebody told me what had happened, I didn't actually. I didn't actually understand what they meant. I didn't understand when they were saying. It sounds obvious now that they flew into the. I was like, what do you mean? It's not, when I see it, I was like, and I think I probably watched 3 days of news back to back,
Yeah,
literally.
same. We left 8 days after that, knowing full well we were going. By the time I left my house to drive 20 minutes to work, we didn't know where we are going. By the time I got to work, we knew where we are going, to Afghanistan. The
They
time
say to you,
they said I walked on the river like, "Hey, we're going to Afghanistan. Pull the maps out, charts. Let's go." I'm like, "Okay." They knew exactly where we were going. And then it's
what
kind
did
of
you
funny
think?
too, like, "Hey, there's this country called Pakistan between the ocean and Afghanistan. We get to fight our way through Pakistan. Like, we're not sure, prepared to do that. Okay." Then we get a phone call an hour later. Hey, Pakistan's on board. No need to fight your way through Pakistan. So we're like preparing to fight our way into Afghanistan through Pakistan, but Pakistan said, we'll allow you to do that. So that was a good call, Pakistan. Nice work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely there. Yeah. How did you find life? Were you always on the actual carrier?
No, if the carrier's not on deployment, you're back here at the beach is what we call it. So I've been on like 7 or so deployments in my life total. And when you're not deployed or not training to go on deployment, you're home or wherever. So and then the Navy rotates you through jobs where you don't fly for the entire, I did 32 years. I didn't fly for 32. I flew for maybe 15 of those. The rest of those times I was, in the job I despised, a cubicle, working in various jobs that didn't
Yeah,
allow me to
yeah.
continue to fly. Yeah.
What about when you're on active service then? So you've been deployed to Afghanistan, but you're on a aircraft carrier. Do you stay on there, or do you dock, or?
No, yeah, we would left September 18th and went over to hung out in the Eastern Med to see after the first attacks occurred what would happen to Israel. To be quite honest, when Afghan originally was attacked, nothing happened. Went to the Red Sea and hung out in the Gulf of Oman off the coast of Pakistan for the next 4 months. So we didn't pull in for almost 5 months. We were just at sea every day for 159 days. And
What's yeah?
up until
What?
that time, COVID broke all those rules, but that's the longest at sea period since World War II was the USS Theodore Roosevelt, 159 days. So we didn't pull in, but you know what? It's okay because we're doing the mission and that helps you to stay. And we would have stayed out there for a year if required because yeah.
How does your like mental health get affected? How do you deal with it being on board a ship for 5 months, not touching land?
It's part of the Navy life. You get resilient to that. But think about at least the aviators, we have it easy. I had a two-person stateroom, just two of us. And when he was flying, I was back in my stateroom by myself, or vice versa. Every day you got a 6-hour break, if you will, to go over Afghanistan and go drop bombs. I think of those sailors who live in 220 man berthing, 220, where they're live right above them is a flight deck. Some of these spaces, so there's jets landing up here right above their head, and you're stacked 3 high, times 220 people, and there's no only space you have to yourself as a sailor is that your little rack, they call it, that's it. So I think about they never get to go off the ship.
Yeah.
They're there the entire time working on the flight deck, down the engineering spaces, cooking, maintaining aircrafts. Those folks are truly the heroes of all this because that's a hard job, and they don't get to go back to a 2-man stateroom. They go back to
Oh, no.
220 man berthing with a little small space for themselves. So sailors are pretty resilient, living like that, and you learn to to adapt. Those first time you get off the ship is definitely it's a free for all when you finally get off the ship, as you can imagine.
After,
Pulling
yeah,
into
everyone's getting drunk.
Dubai, or we pulled into Bahrain, and initially the fleet, that three-star admiral said, "I'm too worried about letting you guys out in town. We're going to not allow you to leave the pier after 5 months at sea." My boss's boss went, "BS. If we don't do that, we're not pulling in. We're going to go pulling into the Mediterranean. That's going to be 179 days at sea. How's that going to read in the paper?" So the admiral folded and let us pull in to Bahrain, and it went fine. We definitely
That's good.
a lot of stuff going on, fun,
Yeah, of
but
course.
just you can imagine 5 months at sea pulling off, but
Yeah.
blowing off steam. But it was just very nice to get off. Just that first time you touch the land, it's kind of weird. You're walking on the land, and you're seeing green trees. You're like, wow, this is kind of weird. So that's definitely you have to get used to that.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine getting used to it again because you're so used to being at sea and
Yeah.
in a different environment
To
there.
answer your question about the mental health, it's hard. I mean, you just become
Yeah,
so focused, and we're not good at it. Operational stress controls. The Navy's gotten better through the years of really helping sailors to kind of deal with that stress. I mean, nowadays, there's no Wi-Fi back then. There's no cell phones back then. But
yeah,
now on a carrier, where the sailors live and eat, the mess decks they call them, is Wi-Fi. So you can sit down and FaceTime with your spouse, your
great.
girlfriend
Yeah, that's must be
at sea.
massive.
Huge drop in mental health challenges because of that,
Yeah,
which has been very helpful to kind of that's a burden on the ship when folks just can't focus. So hey, look, go to the mess desk, go call your wife,
yeah.
husband, and just take that. That's been very helpful to kind of knock down the mental health challenges in the fleet.
Yeah, no, that's great. And how was it's very important there as a therapist to be able to have that. Otherwise, it just builds up, and then you got depression, and you're not going to be the only person. Could affect an entire crew. How did you feel when you got back to the US after you'd finished your deployment? What was life like then? How did you?
But it's it takes it is interesting that my first deployment I came back, and when we had young kids at that time, I would step back into the role as father and start doing things, and my wife, Sarah, we've been married now 31 years. She's like, "Oh, hold on. You've been gone for 9 months. Shut up." And I'm like, "I've been running this fine without you. So just go in the corner and
Right.
I got this." So I learned that first deployment, I'm like, just to shut my mouth for about a month
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just let things go and slowly assimilate back into, this life this married life, and then starting making suggestions. Early on, I came
Suggest.
back, I'm like, "Hey, what?" And then she's like, "No, no, 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 no. You just go away." I haven't paid a bill in 32 years because she took over the bills, because I'm gone all the
Yeah.
time. So I'm like, "How do you pay the bills?" She's like, I got it.
Did you find yourself almost like going, "Well, what do you want me to do then? What shall I do?" Sort of because she's obviously knows what she's doing. She's taken control of everything. She doesn't
Yeah.
need you because she spent
No.
so long without you. She like, what do you want me to do?
I'm like, okay, no, I mean, it's funny because she would, the biggest thing that when I came, we had three kids, just to go to the store. She's like, "Can you stay here with the kids so I can go to the store?" Because, before that's a big, okay, load up the 1 year old, the 4 year
Yeah,
old, the 10 year old. Let's go to Harris Teeter and get some food. Now it's like, wait a minute, I can just step out and go get food. I don't have to go load the whole car up and then get the herd of kids in there. So it's amazing how little things like that really monumental when someone's there to help you do that. So that's something that
yeah,
really stood out, that watching, "Wait, I can just go for a run right now. I don't have to push someone in a stroller or jogger. I can just go for a run." So I think Sarah got her independence back when I came back because I could support her to go do
yeah.
things which she couldn't do or did or challenged to do with two or three kids.
And did you find that going on deployment, especially when you got a family, did you think it's got like you've got a window that you could do it in? There's only so many times that you can do it, and then you're like, that's enough, or is something you can
Yeah,
do for?
that's a good one. Unfortunately, leaving my wife for 9 months, we figured that out because we're adults. You can process that. Leaving that 2 year old and 4 year old
Yeah.
is,
Oh God.
and you just like, "I'm gonna see you 9 months from now," and that takes its toll.
Yeah.
And so that that leaving, like when you come back, they're gonna be. I remember coming back from one deployment, and we flew into our air base, and our daughter Mackenzie, I was helping her strap in. She's like, "No, Dad, I can do this now." Like she could now put her own seatbelt on. I'm like, boom. I'm like, so in that 9 months, she figured all these things out without me being there. That to see that developmental growth in 9 months in a snapshot is kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was something that so I think folks, to your point, I think folks have only so many times they can pay that bill and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were able to keep paying that bill with many discussions with Sarah. Like, hey, I always left the decision ultimately to her and the kids. If you want me to get out, I will. But
Right.
we decided that we could keep doing it, and it's because of them that I could stay in as long as I did. Without them, I would have gotten out a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
No,
they're
that's fair enough.
and then I will tell you this that about relationships. I also learned too now that I retired, our marriage was strong. Obviously, we're still married 31,
Yeah.
but I didn't really realize until just these last few years that talking to a marriage therapist, 'cause we just always want to do that, how hard it was
Yeah.
on her and
Oh
that
God. Yeah.
life. I know. Well,
Oh,
I'm yeah, very appreciative because it's hard. It's a hard life for a military.
definitely. As a therapist, and I can tell you about when you have kids, the attachment, the important ages and stuff like that, and the effects and all this sort of thing, and the effects it can have on a relationship. There, I mean, the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah.
They're very much against you. So the way you guys have managed that is pretty impressive.
I learned that I was not as a good communicator as I needed to be. I thought I was good, but I was not. Like you come home, you survive, back to sea. Come home, hang on, hang on. You never really connect and communicate as well as I should have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've learned now that I could have been, I wish we went to a therapist sooner. I would have understood that sooner. But it's that whole thing. I don't want to go see a therapist because that means we're failing as a couple.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's the biggest myth. And having couples, I'm a big fan of couples therapy because you can learn strategies and techniques you get to understand her.
yep.
But that initial going to a couples therapist, does that mean that we're close to divorce? Oh my God, I didn't realize it was that serious. No, we're just working on Look, we're going to the gym, we're getting a personal trainer together. Okay, I'll look at it like that.
Yep, that totally agree. And it's all good news. I tell folks, a lot of my friends are still in active duty and they're senior. I tell them about my experience. Hey, I really recommend going to talk to a marriage therapist because you really learn stuff that having a third party look at to analyze. And if I share that with folks now, hey, go do this because I've learned a lot since I retired and I wish I'd done it sooner.
So what happened to you after you got back from Afghanistan and you kind of finished active duty then? How long did you carry on staying in there for?
Oh,
What changed your
that
life?
was just the start of my career. So that was
Yeah.
so went from 2001 to went to the War College in Newport, Rhode Island for a year. Came back to be to another squadron to deploy, and then went to NATO here locally for a year, and then squadron commander for 2 or 3 years, and then another joint job, and then became an aircraft carrier second in command, and then a captain of a ship, and then so I just continued to grind and move up and get positions of greater and greater responsibility. So it didn't stop for
Yeah.
30 years, just continuously climbing the ladder until 3 years ago. Then I got the great pleasure of retiring, so I can go live my life now. So it's great.
How was how was life like retiring? Is it something that you had planned years in advance, or this is the deadline day, or is it just that that's the end of your service?
Yeah, you never know when your last day in active duty is going to be, especially as you get more senior. You just all of a sudden one day you get a call, hey, you're done. Okay,
Yeah,
we have been planning for follow on life with regard to trying to save up financially and just where we live, we're set up where we're retired, still living where I retired at, but it's just you just told one day basically, hey, you're retiring in 8 months. Okay, thanks, so let's
yeah,
retire. So yeah, so to prepare for that, I think about that a lot, where I tell my friends of mine that had something that you want to do that you can't do on active duty. So when you get out, you can go do that thing. And
right,
that's been helping to fill that void of
yeah,
being in that group, that meshed, integrated team of clear mission, task, and purpose, and objectives are clear, and you're all striving for the same thing. That's gone. But I'll never get that back. And I acknowledge that. But I can find things that I can get close to that to help me meet that.
yes. How was because one of the things that I tell clients is to stay busy. Always
Yep.
be busy. Never have
Yep.
too much time. It's the worst thing in the world. And for you, it must be similar to like being like a sports star, like a football player or something. When they retire, they're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah. The loss of prestige is significant. So you go from
Yeah.
being, an aircraft carrier captain to retired dude hanging out on my lawn with dress socks and walking around mowing my lawn. So you're like,
Yeah.
you're nothing.
Yeah.
It's somewhat. Folks take that literally. Like, I am no longer a fighter pilot. I'm no longer a ship captain.
Yeah.
And that really did it takes something from their soul. I want to always make
Yeah.
so I think that losing that prestige is something else, but if you're prepared for it, you know that there's something else you want to do in your life and you can go do it. 'Cause I think staying busy is
Yeah.
not good enough. That's just you're hiding it. But staying focused and inspired, that's something that staying busy won't hack it. But having something that can inspire you to have you keep you focused, that's the goal. And I have found that to help to find that outlet to I'll never be in a red room again, never fly fighters again. That's okay. There's other things doing which I really enjoy, and it's been making my retired life fantastic.
What was the thing that you focused on to do once you got out then? Once that career was over?
Early on, it was I wanted to be a teacher. So maybe 10 years ago, I'm like, I want to teach high school math and coach football, give to our country in a different form or fashion. When I got out and kind of saw how much they earn, I'm like, I have to get one more kid through college, which is unfortunate. I have a
Yeah,
lot to
yeah.
offer, but I just couldn't,
Ah, yeah.
yeah, so that was the thing was it kept me thinking about teaching, and then about 2 years before I retired, I started thinking about public speaking. I love sharing stories of like I shared with you, Lee, this the
Yeah.
lessons learned from that and how that can apply in your life. And I think I have a really simple way to approach leadership that doesn't require complex strategies or cost initiatives or go pretend to be a Navy SEAL for a weekend, and pretend like you're badass SEAL. But these 4 or 5 simple things you can do every day that are super simple that can make you an effective, memorable leader. So I like to share that with folks and just lessons learned, mistakes I've made, and how you can learn from
Yeah.
those. Scratching my itch of helping people. So that's what's been helping to fill that void of leaving active duty and leaving those teams, which I was a part of for 32 years.
And you ended up being an advisor on the movie, right?
So yeah, still on active duty back in 17, got to the great privilege and wish I could tell you that they they looked they searched the entire Navy for the most intelligent and smartest and greatest leader in the Navy to go be the
And
advisor
then you're
to
gonna
our top
say
guy.
that then they
They're
found
like,
you.
they're like, hey, we're gonna find some captain who's not doing anything right now. Oh, Cummings, yeah, why don't you go do that? That was the criteria. Like someone who's nose carriers and fly new fighters, F-14s. Are you doing it right now? No, go help them write the screenplay. I'm like, all right, sir, thanks. So that was the process. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
was back in 17, right before I
yeah,
went to take command of the USS Gerald R. Ford. So did that for about 9 months, helped them craft the screenplay and get it to where pretty much 80% of what you saw in the movies, what we worked on with the writer and the director of Top Gun Maverick. Really great experience, really fun.
yeah. At some stage, you must have got to meet Tom Cruise, surely.
Never did. I
No?
left before I went back to sea before the filming started. My job was to get the screenplay realistic to the point where the Navy wouldn't laugh at it. So I
Right.
keep the realism
Okay.
and the stupidity out of it that would embarrass the
Right.
Navy. So I was the give them some ideas and keep it center mass. And then I handed it off to my friend, who was the another advisor, my next advisor. He was the screenplay to film transition, and my third friend was the full on film guy. So we each had our own aspects of the movie. I never met Tom Cruise. I got to go to the premiere with our daughter. The world premiere in 2022 is really fun.
Yeah, the movie's brilliant. It's really good. I mean, it's rare, especially when it's like, what, 30 odd years after the
Yeah,
original, for it to be good. Usually they sink without a trace, but it's really, really good. And the flight sequences were amazing.
amazing.
S- So how can you? I mean, I'm not going to know the difference. So what's the difference between kind of like fantasy and reality with flying one of those planes? Because he's in a '60s plane, isn't he? In part of it as well.
Yeah, so that was a challenge. The director, Joe Kosinski, his goal was to minimize the amount of CGI.
Yeah, yeah.
Put actors all in the back seat of a 2-seat Super Hornet and put cameras on them and it made it appear as if they were flying. So that's one way to avoid the trap of the folly of CGI and special effects. That was step one. And then there are other stuff they had to do special effects because the Tomcat isn't flying anymore. So that was basically an F-18 that did those flights, and they just skinned in a Tomcat over the top of it, special
Right.
effects. They had a real Tomcat actually from the scenes on the ground. It was an actual Tomcat that they took from a museum somewhere, but there's no flying Tomcats anywhere in the world.
Come on, there's none. You'd think there's some. We still got Spitfires that fly, not
Wait,
many.
well,
You know.
so they decommissioned them from the Navy in 2005, and
Right.
then until a few weeks ago, they were flying in Iran. But Israel, oh yeah, but Israel attacked them about whatever 2 months ago. So the last remaining Tomcats got schwacked by the Israeli Air Force. So like, which just seems like a low blow. I mean, they were so old, they were like in a air power. They're in a museum park, and they still schwacked them. So
Oh God,
but
just in case.
just in case, yeah. So all my friends, we all shed a tear. I mean, granted, it's for the Iranians, so another story there. But we all shed a little subtle tear for. Well, that's it. The big fighter, that's called, is now gone. There's nothing left. There's none
Yeah.
left in the world that fly.
When you were doing the movie, did you ever have like a disagreement or a conversation where they're like, "Can you not do this and do that?" And you're like, "That's just unrealistic. Here's the reasons why," or anything like that?
Oh yeah, there was a couple times where I went for a week with the writer in a hotel room in San Diego. We went line by line through the screenplay, and there's one point where I said, "Okay, if you do this, I quit. I don't
Really?
be
What?
in the credits. Call Joe. Let's talk about it. This defies the time-space continuum, what you're asking to do, and we'll look like idiots." So we got Joe on
What
the
was it?
phone.
What were they asking for?
In short, it was the 4 planes going in the movie, the
Yeah,
Super
yeah,
Hornets,
yeah, yeah,
having Rooster get shot down. The
yeah.
original screenplay had them getting in a Tomcat and catching up to the other 2 jets, and catching up to them and saving them in a dogfight. And I'm like,
Right.
"Joe, after they get shot down, the 2 are gonna be going Mach 1 towards the ship. They're gonna be on board the ship in like 17 minutes. There's no
Yeah.
way they could actually go get shot down in a parachute, go steal a Tomcat, and catch up to a jet going 700 miles an hour. That is physically impossible unless they're in a time machine."
But what did he say?
He's like, "Okay, how do we get there? How about a day?" So we compromised. So we
Right,
found some
right.
compromises, and it is funny. You'll love this, Lee. That at one point Joe pulled me aside, and he's like, "Hey, Yank, my call sign. I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
appreciate your passion and enthusiasm for this project, but you know what? We can't make the most accurate yet boring fighter pop movie in the history of film because we can't sell tickets making a documentary. We need drama. Can you help
yeah.
us find drama?" I'm like, "And by the way, this is not your movie. This is our movie. We're spending $300 million." So like, yeah, Joe, my bad. Sorry. I appreciate he did that because he was being honest.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah.
And from there
And that's
forward, yeah, from there forward, I went, "Okay, what do you want to do? Okay, then through the eyes of drama that sells tickets, let me think about this and then offer a suggestion." So we improved our
yeah,
relationship. And now I see movies. I used to be like, "That's such oh, that's
yeah,
a
that
drama," So I
yeah,
know the equation now. The recipe is realism is not that important. The
yeah,
drama and selling of tickets is what's important.
yeah. I'm a World War One and World War Two history nerd. I've been all over Europe going to World War Two battlefields, World War One battlefields. I can't watch a war film, even Saving Private Ryan. I'm like, that wouldn't happen. That MG40 is just gonna literally mount the barrel because they're not doing it in short bursts. They're around the wrong way. They're gonna. Yeah, I can't help it. Dunkirk. I went on a
Oh
tour.
boy. Oh yeah.
I went on a tour to Dunkirk with my sons and
Yeah.
with the guide, and he said, "Has anyone seen the movie?" I went, "Yeah, it really sucks." He went, "Oh, most of this tour's about the movie," and he said to me, "What's the reason you didn't like the movie?" I was like, "Well, for a start, Dunkirk was flattened. For a start, nobody was wearing long coats, and I'll give about half a
Yeah.
dozen reasons as to why." And he went, "I actually agree with you on that there as well." And he's
Nice.
like, "But the thing is, here's the reasons as to why they had to film it like that." But yeah, I struggle on that, but I get they got to make a movie at the same time.
My whole goal was this, Lee. I couldn't make it a documentary, got it. But my goal was to avoid it becoming Iron Eagle. Have you seen that movie?
Which one's that? Which
Iron
one you
Eagle.
got?
It is awful. It's an F-16 Air Force movie, comical. So there's some of the stuff they do in there. I'm like, every once in a while, I'm like, "Joe, that's Iron Eagle. We can't do that." And there's like 4 Iron Eagles, Lou Gossett Jr.'s in there. And it's just a really, really bad, comical, farcical movie. And I said, "We cannot do that because we can't let it become Iron Eagle. We're going to get laughed at." So that was my goal, is to, yeah, not make it a documentary, check, but then not make it be so ridiculous that it's just now a
Hey,
laughing stock.
with the movie, I really enjoyed it.
Great, glad
And
you did.
the flight part, because I always with those films, I always find that it's like if you can't do like soccer movies or sports movies because it's all good until the actual and it just never looks realistic. It just looks terrible. And with the flight sequences, I mean, if you get it right, it looks amazing. And I remember like edge of my seat watching Maverick,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
great.
this is brilliant. Oh yeah, yeah, no, it's really good. Everyone that's seen it that I know has come and gone, yeah, that's a really good film. It's as good as the first one. So that's an achievement. But I think a big part of that was the flight.
Yeah, they gave yeah, and the goal to talk about soccer, you can't lose the audience. It becomes so
No,
technically perfect that they're like, I am lost now. And that's the goal. Looking through the eyes of I now look through the eyes of the moviegoer is the goal, like writing a book, created through the eyes of the reader. Similarly, eyes of the moviegoer. But yeah, there was definitely something super simplified because it's to keep it from confusing the moviegoer. Like
it's like the terrible film Enigma. They're there trying to
oh yeah.
get like what looks like the typewriter. They didn't actually want that. They actually just wanted the actual codes. That was it. But for people to understand the movie, they had to take that as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's there are a couple scenes that were kind of nonsense that didn't make sense, but I understand, that would never happen in real world. But generally, to your point, I mean, they gave that final scene to me. Like, how would you attack this? What's the threat?
Yeah,
What will be the tactic? And that's a buddy lay scenario. So we helped them, to kind of generate something that was realistic in that regard. But yeah, generally the scenes are. I mean, the flying is super legit up in the Pacific Northwest. Most of those flights are made, and those are real pilots pulling G's with the actors in
yeah,
the back seat, just feeling it. So it's legit. There are a couple
yeah,
scenes are like, like, how did you not know a bridge was there? Wouldn't the satellite imagery let you know, like, because they flew under a bridge, like they were surprised by that? You would not know that? And then, a couple other funny things that I just looked, but overall, I will tell you this though, the
yeah,
Tomcat startup, perfect. Because I
yeah,
told Joe, if you cut a corner for the Tomcat startup and just magically start this thing, you will lose every F-14 pilot and Rio in the world will call BS. So here are
yeah.
like the 17 things you have to do to start the F-14. So no kidding, that is exactly how a Tomcat started in that manner. So I got phone calls after the movie like, Yank nailed it. I'm glad you got that started because it's exactly how it starts. So it's amazing how little things matter. Classic
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
And they wanted to nail that. And on Joe, to his credit, left in all those little steps that were required to
yeah.
start an F-14. So I've done that countless times. So I'm glad they
It,
stuck to that. Yeah.
it's really good, and it's so important because if I'm like watching a Second World War film and it's the little things, just like that's not accurate.
Yep.
That wouldn't have happened. Just little things like that, and I'm probably the world's worst, but it doesn't take a lot to lose me on it. Yeah, especially if like Hitler and like the Nazis, that's where like my main knowledge is German history there as well. And so when you see a movie and then they've got like the Nazis doing this and I'm like that they weren't even there. In Saving Private Ryan, they've got SS on the D-Day beaches. They weren't even there.
Nope.
They
No,
were
that's
not
yeah.
there at all.
Good point.
And the
Good
guy,
point.
they had an advisor on there, and he said to him, "Why you got all these SS here?" And to Spielberg, and he went, "Oh yeah, because it adds drama. It weren't there." And
Yeah.
the guy got quit or he got fired, and then he's like, and then he realized that in the water they had the things around the wrong way, and he's like, I ain't going to tell him.
Yeah, you know what? But I now I'm more appreciative of the challenges of making a movie for that very
Yeah,
reason because yeah, it makes us angry, but that us being angry doesn't sell movie tickets. And they got to turn a profit. So let's dumb it down. I mean, be quite honest, dumb it
exactly.
down.
Yeah, I'll stick to documentaries if I want accuracy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You want to see an
exactly.
actor fail? Yeah, go watch a documentary. That's where you can see the accuracy. So yeah, very, very funny, but a great experience. I do give Joe credit. I left in 2017, but they stayed the course and a lot of stuff that we worked on stuck. And it is generally a very accurate movie. Couple things here and there. Obviously,
Yeah,
I'm
things
super happy.
considered.
Me
Yeah.
too. Two quotes of mine. Joe called me before the premiere and said, "Hey Yank, I put two quotes that came directly out of your mouth. When you see the movie, call me and tell me what they were." So his first one was, "I don't sail boats, Penny. I land on them." That was my quote. And then there's a bag of ass was the other quote. So, so I threw a
Right.
couple things. So he took that out of, I didn't know the sailing one. He asked me, what would he say here? I'm like, I don't know. I don't sail boats, Penny. I land on them. And then the bag of ass, I use that apparently too much in my life. And, which makes my mom really happy that, nice son, you gave a curse word to Top Gun Maverick. Good job.
He said my words. I don't care. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So, what did you do after you actually retired? Then, what was the new you? What was the new life, new career?
So retirement came quickly. Well, wasn't expecting it to be quite honest, but
Yeah.
quickly transitioned. Then, We had like a pseudo plan to stay, not move, kind of minimize the variables in that equation to kind of make the move, not move from where we were, and then jump to a Boeing defense to kind of do what I was still doing, walking the flight line, talking to aviators, giving feedback to the company about the Super Hornet, how to make it, more lethal, feedback, simulators. And I did that for 2 years, 2.5 years. And it wasn't really lighting my fire with regard to inspiration. It's a big company.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy is rampant. And I was just a zit on the butt of Boeing. They didn't care about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jumped to a startup
Yeah.
in April called Shield AI, and a whole new, it's like reinvigorated my just drive to do inspiring, fun things. 1,000 people company, working hard, and startup, just go. It's just aggressive thinking, move out, and don't hesitate. I love it. So
Yeah.
I have now every
Yeah.
day I wake up, mission, task, and purpose are crystal clear. I'm behind every day. That's okay. I know what's expected of me. Go. So it's really, really fun. Not my experience at Boeing. Great company. Wasn't a good fit for me. This is a
Yeah.
better fit because it's more to the style of like being back in a ready room. A bunch of folks are working towards a common objective, and just get out of my way, or I'm going to run you over. I love that aspect of it.
And with yourself, though, obviously doing the podcast interviews and you looking to do like keynote speaker, and tell me a bit about what's going on there and what you're looking to do in the future with everything.
I want to keep sharing the word of, in my view, leadership is not complicated. It's being a good leader, isn't simple, but it can be easy. It can be simple. Just do these 5 things every day that don't require, as I mentioned previously, a lot of thought. Just being a good human, authentic, empathetic, show folks you care about them, listen to them, actively listen to them, do these things. And then, I think about ripple effect. Let's say you train a bunch of leaders to treat folks this way and not just
Yeah.
be authoritarian. Well, they're going to see that and like, wow, I like this style. And guess what? When they're leaders, they're going to do that to their direct reports. And you have this ripple effect of human decency, of leadership decency that can be spread. And we can stop this world of just leadership by text, leadership by being online, and actually leading by being in person, being personable, empathetic, and authentic. And that can make a big difference. That's my goal. I want to spread the word of be authentic, be empathetic, show the folks you work with, you care about them through your actions, not your words. That's my goal.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think it's a really good thing to have there. I mean, I've had like managers back in the day, and the difference between a good manager and a bad manager, it just pulls apart.
What
And
made that manager bad? What were the attributes that made that manager bad, would you say, when you think back?
I think it was. There's just so many. It's I think a lot of it is the way they treat you, the lack
Yep.
of respect there. I think it's their way, no other way there. They
Yep.
can't understand frame of reference. I worked in a very kind of Wolf of Wall Street sales job. You got people that are good at selling, you got people that are not so good, and people that are exceptional. And like a couple of the managers were unbelievable salespeople. They're on another level. But like one of my managers couldn't understand why everyone couldn't meet his level, but he was just on a
Oh,
different level. He was
yep.
just on but he didn't get the frame of reference that not everybody wanted to work all of those hours. Not everybody would give some people just wanted to turn up, do their hours, hit a target, go home and make a bit of money.
Yeah.
Whereas, let's make as much money we need to do. So you couldn't understand that. That was always a difficult one there as well. And some people, I found this particular man didn't have a concept of what other people were going through. Again, it's frame of reference there. So people might be
Yep.
struggling with like depression because it's a high powered, stressful job there as well. But you can't understand why you can't just put it to one side and just get on and make money.
Yeah.
There's so many sort of things there as well, whereas like each person's different and you might take this into account with that one, that into account with that one there as well. But when I've worked with good managers that like be empathetic, they understand where you're coming from, and you go through with some of the managers I work for. I'd go through brick walls for them. You'd be in the trenches with them, as they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I had like one manager was like, "Oh, Lee, you do lots of overtime hitting targets. Well, I want you to do that with me." And as soon as it come across that he demanded it with me, I was like, "I ain't doing any overtime." He had already lost me, and I ain't even got started.
Yep. I always think about leading with humanity, not with just authority. Folks who
Yeah,
hang on that authority and don't look to branch out to learn about the challenges that their workers are feeling, what's going through their mind, by actually asking questions and being curious about their lives, like being a therapist. I mean, you're an active therapist as a boss, and if you're just being a hammer, not listening to understanding their perspective, then you're
yeah,
going to, not to say you won't be successful, but you're going to drive folks into very different dark places, and you could be a much better organization if you're innovative and free
You,
thinking
you,
than as the ones who are just trying to
it,
hang on and hit quotas and move on. Yeah.
yeah. This is the thing is that if you look, I find if you look after your staff, people stay because most people don't want to look for another job. They don't want to, the hassle. So when you've got a high turnover of staff, you're
Yep.
either not getting paid enough or the job's not good, or it's actually the people that's there that's in charge there as well. And I found that with where I work, there was a lot of people would obviously it's south, so there's a turnover, but you get a lot of people that would be staying because they work for a certain manager, and then there's another manager where they've got high turnover of staff. Well, why do you think that is? No.
Yeah. What's the common denominator there? Yep. Yeah.
Exactly there as well. With yourself then, so you got this. Well, tell us a little bit about the company that you're working for. What are you actually doing? Because the whole AI thing has just exploded. I mean,
Yeah.
I
You
can't
know,
live
it's
without Chat GBT now. You know.
I know it's obviously the future of war is autonomy. Is there at some point in our life will the fighter that I flew be unmanned? Absolutely. When that will
Yeah.
occur, unknown. Could be 50 years from now, could be 30 years from now. I don't know. But it's coming, and I look at our kids, they're gonna be when they're my age. Like, yeah, your dad he actually flew in an aircraft. What was that like? It's gonna be that way. So
So
this company is working towards that, which is the rest of the defense industry also is moving towards autonomy, AI, machine learning, and then aircraft that can fly without pilots and do very dangerous missions.
it feels unthinkable, but then you've got look at the drones that you've got today. So what's the difference?
Yeah, go look what happened in the Red Sea with the Houthis, with the United States Navy
Yeah.
there. Of course, Ukraine. I mean, they are doing amazing work in a very tough environment because all they're fighting for their lives. So it's amazing when you're fighting
Yeah.
for your life, how innovative you become because you can
Yeah.
stick it to a better armed force because you're fighting for your country and you're fighting for something. So they're
Yeah.
finding ways to just completely upset the apple cart of that old way, status quo way of thinking by doing this. So we all need to start thinking like the Ukrainians and finding ways that we can use AI, computer, drones, unmanned assets to go do things that the manned aircraft are doing now. Now, again, when's that going to occur? I don't know. At some point, I imagine 100 years from now, absolutely. There's no way there's a manned aircraft 100 years from now. So when does that crossover occur? So Shield is working in that space, as are a lot of companies, and they've been working on autonomy for I think about a decade. This company's been around, and they are leading edge in their autonomy to do what's called their hive mind system that powers the drones of varying sizes. I can't talk about one of them right now, the one I'm working on, but it's the future of naval aviation. And it's fun to be on no kidding, the front row there watching potentially the revolution in naval aviation. It's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think there could be a better job outside of your Navy career than
No,
what you're doing now.
well, no, you're right. And I'm lucky to have found this. It's all about personal relationships. Folks I knew worked here. You talk about relationships. That's
Yeah.
how I got this job because they knew people that work here knew me. We kept in touch, and you're connecting and networking and communicating your desires. And folks like, hey, you should come to our company because we need a fighter pilot and an aircraft carrier guy. I'm like, okay, what company? And then boom, here I am. So
Do you,
that
do you think
communication, that network is huge, and that's how I got this job. And I love it. It's to your point, it's
you
fascinating,
got?
leading edge. It's a lot of work, by the way. I'm working harder than I've worked in a while.
I
Yeah,
can imagine,
it's
but
okay though.
I
Yeah.
can imagine the job was yours straight away. I can imagine you just turned out and went, "Here's my resume. I'll start on Monday."
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. You think that when you get out, that's a lot of folks think, well, I'm in the military. I've been in 32 years. The
Yeah, yeah.
phone's going to start ringing.
Here's my
Right.
no.
But not the case. It's interesting. I'm like, when I retire, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit back and wait for the phone to ring. It didn't
Yeah,
ring. So you got to still get out there and do the efforts to put yourself in position to have the phone ring. But I see folks that sit back waiting for the phone call, and that's not how it works. 'Cause you got to go
it,
out there and find that work.
with like I know you guys call it soccer, but football players here when they retire, I've seen interviews, and a lot of them struggle with their mental health and depression. They've gone from being somebody in front of like 50, 60,000 people idolizing week, and then suddenly they're in the supermarket shop, they're in the Walmart or whatever, and they're assuming the phone's going to ring, they're going to get job coaching offers, they're going to get
Yeah.
TV and
Yep.
nothing, and they've got to go out there and start
Yeah.
looking for it, and it's a shock.
It is. There's a few folks that get that call, but that's not. We don't know anyone like that. There's a few folks that are going to retire. Like, yeah, we just come on over. 4-star
Yeah.
admirals, high-ranking officials, different story. But for your sausage makers, captain level, colonel, no, no. You need to go out there and grind and find that job because the phone is not going to ring. So you got to make it ring. It's been
Yeah.
fascinating to watch that and just to tell my friends like, no, 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 you need to work at this to go start the networking early because the phone won't ring unless you make it unless you make get a position to make it ring.
Yeah, I think that even the likes of your Jockos and your David Goggins had to put the work in. Nothing was given to them. They've had to build up.
Yeah, they weren't world famous when they got out of the Navy. They
No.
got there. They earned that stamp, that brand that they've worked hard to get. So,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to be one of those guys. That's okay. But I'm happy to, try to get there someday through public speaking and sharing good stories and leadership that are maybe a little bit different. It is interesting to have they think some big dumb fighter pilot ship captain is going to talk about hammering. And in fact, I'm like, no, that's actually a failure. You got to think about empathy and being authentic and listening to people and showing them that you are a human being. That's the real theme of my talk. And it's a little bit
Yeah.
kind of catches folks off guard. They expect it to be more, fighter pilot, Top Gun, this. Like, nope. It's about losing the prestige and coming down to the level of workers and just having a conversation, not about work.
I think for a lot of people, they could be expecting something. With me, I don't know, because I don't base anything on movies or anything. But I think when they hear what the authentic side of it is, it's a different conversation, and it's more interesting because it's not what they were expected, and then it's more realistic as well. It's not like some movie.
I think folks get into that, to speak of the movies about acting, where they have to get into these roles and be something that is not them. Got to be that hammer, be the authoritarian, be aloof, be mysterious, and I've seen folks who work for me do that. I'm like, no, I know that's not you. Stop, And I think that it must be exhausting to go through life being an imposter, pretending to be somebody else because you
It
think your
is.
boss wants you to be that way, or
Oh,
you think you need to be that way. Yeah.
I deal with that every day with clients.
Same.
Somebody's like got all these internal struggles, they're struggling with depression. They got to put on the front and the face, and they're doing it.
Yep.
It's exhausting. It's not sustainable. Eventually, it catch up with you, and it's all about being your authentic self, or whatever that might be. And a lot of times, people do things they don't actually need to do. You don't need to, just be yourself, be authentic.
I mean, I struggled with that. When I went to be the executive officer in an aircraft carrier, second in command, just made captain. I'm the number 2 guy in an aircraft carrier. I'm like, wow, I'm leading 3,000 or 4,000 people. I'm running the ship for the captain. Should I act differently? And I struggled for a month, and then I looked around the fleet and saw leaders who were above me, who I respected, basically I loved. And I noticed they were just being themselves. They had the courage to
Yeah,
be themselves. And I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I'm just going to be this wise
yeah,
ass, married, 3 kids, fast talking person from Massachusetts and nobody else. And that's
yeah.
it. And I wasn't going to try to pretend to be something that I was not, because that is frustrating and draining on your soul and exhausting for the people that are around you who see right through that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with any keynote speaking that you're going to do, and you do, it's going to be a really interesting conversation. People's going to be listening to everything you say because it's just so interesting. All your stories that you're saying. Not only are they really educational, they're really interesting there as well. And there's just so much to listen to there as well. Yeah,
Try
it's
to make them
brilliant.
more of just talking about how perfect and I made these great decisions. Negative. Half of the stories are when I screwed up, when I had
Yeah,
challenges and yeah, it's a mistake I made because I was thinking about this when I should have been thinking about that. So
yeah.
I'm happy to share my failures because you always have failures.
And you learn more from your mistakes and your failures.
100%.
Definitely.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
if you're like me and you keep repeating the same mistakes, eventually you learn from them.
Well, that's now called a bad decision. I've learned that. I've heard somebody told me that once, like, you make an honest mistake the first time, I'll applaud you
That's
for
right.
trying something different. Do the same thing
Yeah,
again. Now that's a bad decision. So I'm like, yeah. So there's a
exactly.
different differentiation there.
When it's 4 or 5 times, what's that one called?
That's a longer mistake. That's now you're choosing to choose poorly.
I've chose poorly again. You choose
Go
poorly.
figure.
You choose poorly often enough in life, you end up becoming a therapist.
You need something to kind of energize your soul. Yeah. So that's very true. Yeah.
JJ, it's been absolutely amazing. It's so interesting talking to you. I've enjoyed every single second. I'll talk to you for absolutely forever there as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been brilliant.
No, Lee, thanks a lot. This is great. I really enjoyed your questioning attitude, and you're a therapist. You're good at that. So you're really great, great
Thank you.
podcast. Thanks for the conversation. It's always fun to kind of share stories, which I enjoy sharing with people, and hopefully folks learn from them and learn from the
Definitely.
mistakes we've made to make
Yeah,
themselves better
yeah.
leaders, better people, and more successful in life. So happy to do that and really enjoyed talking with you. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.